It's July 31st, 2021, at around 11 pm at night, and it's pitch black with no moon or stars out, and a man is driving along Highway 210 in North Carolina. He's about to have the most terrifying experience of his life. The road is flanked by thick forest on both sides and occasional bits of farmland, with long stretches between civilization. You can't see anything past the tree line, and his truck is going about 60 miles an hour. Welcome to the Campfire Archives. This is the Pale Crawler of Pender County. So without further ado, let's listen to his 911 call.
Pender County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
I'm driving on 210. I just crossed the Black River, and I thought I saw a guy standing on the side of the road bleeding.
Okay, where are you at, sir?
I'm on 210. I just crossed the Black River. I'm heading towards 53 East. I just passed Patriots Watch.
Okay, so you're over near Morse Creek?
Yes.
Okay. And did you saw a man standing on the side of the road? What was that, sir?
That's not human! That's not human!
Sir, are you okay, sir?
There's something in the bed of my truck!
Okay, what's in the road?
No, it's not in the road. It's in my truck. In the bed.
There's something in the bed of your truck?
Yes, ma'am. I just turned on my bed lights for my truck, and there's something in my bed.
Okay, sir, when you say something, what do you mean?
I just knocked it off of the bed of my truck and went over my roof.
Okay, what was it?
Okay, Tom, so what are your initial thoughts there?
So my initial thought was that some nutter has jumped in the back of his... He's in a pickup truck.
He's in a pickup truck, yeah.
Yeah, so was that some nutter has jumped into the back of his pickup truck. However, we've already addressed that he's going at 55 miles an hour, and he passed this figure, whatever it was, a good 30 seconds before it actually jumps in the back of his truck. So the idea of it being a person has basically been blown out of the water, unless it was a person who can sprint faster than 55 miles per hour or was on a motorbike that this guy somehow couldn't see. Then that theory seems like it's out.
Sure. Let me give you a bit of a breakdown of what went on there, because it can be a bit hard to hear exactly what's going on. He drives past a Civil War battlefield, and that's when he sees the man. Now, later in interviews, he describes this man as wearing a torn Civil War outfit, and he's bleeding from his head. And that's what prompts him to initially make the call, is he sees someone who he never specifies, but presumably could be some kind of reenactor with a head injury. The bang we hear on the recording, he later tells deputies and state troopers, is this thing landing on his cab and the back of his truck. Now, when that happens, when you hear that noise, he says he feels the truck bounce, as if he's suddenly carrying some kind of heavy trailer. So he can really feel the weight of this thing suddenly in the bed of his truck.
Does he allude to what the thing in his truck looked like? All I could hear him scream was, "That's not human."
That's not human. Yeah, he does. He gives a description of it. He says it's snow white. Its face has shallow, sunken eyes. There's no visible nose, no visible ears, and the skin looks like it's been stretched over a human skull and pulled very thin. Now, going back to the timeline, after he feels this thing land in his truck, he puts his truck light on and sees it there. And its face at one point is pressed against his rear window. looking into his driver's cab. So what he does is, by his own admission at this point, he's going about 55 to 60 miles an hour. He speeds up to around 80 as best he can tell, and then he brakes sharply. And this thing flies over the roof of his cab and onto the floor in front of him. And that's where he gets a bit more of a good look at it in his headlights. He says it's got a human body, but one that looks like it's been stretched out. It's got elongated limbs, a scrawny, unnaturally thin body, human shape but stretched, roughly about 7 feet tall, as best he can tell. His truck's about 6 foot, and this is a decent height above that. So after it's been thrown from his truck, he's still driving. He basically curbs round it, and then in his rear view mirror, he sees it pick itself up and then bolt into the trees. He speeds all the way to a nearby gas station, which is about 6 minutes away. It should be a 7-minute journey. It takes him about 6 minutes, which again marries with the fact he's speeding, which you'd expect at this stage. And at that point, he turns his truck to the direction he's come from, keeps his lights on, and waits. And this whole time, he's on the phone with the sheriff's office. And he remains so until they arrive.
Wow, okay. I mean, I have so many questions, or so many little ideas that have been kind of flittering through my head there. My first thought when you initially told me about this story was, okay, what predatory animals do we have in Florida? And the answer is not many that would fit that description.
Well, this is North Carolina we're in now.
North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. He's
Okay.
come from Florida.
Okay. So my first thought, obviously, was bear, black bear. They can run fast, very fast when they want to. And I guess maybe if you were to look at them in the dead of night, you might think that they would maybe resemble something like a human, especially if we're going into theory from a previous episode. Actually, what if this bear had mange? Maybe it had lost its fur. Maybe it looked kind of like a human. You'd be surprised how much a bear kind of looks humanoid if it's lost its fur. However, generally speaking, black bears, they're the more timid species of bear in North America. I've never heard a story about a black bear chasing a truck at full speed for that amount of time, then leaping in the back of the truck and proceeding to stare the guy who's driving it in the face and try and get to him. I've never heard of that. You've also got bobcats, you've got coyotes, but they don't marry with the idea of this thing being 7 foot tall. Very, very interesting. I come back around to the idea of it possibly being somebody playing a prank. What if it was somebody who managed to, on a motorbike, who's just stripped naked and jumped into the back of his truck without him noticing? I don't know. What could that have been? And it leads you to the unlogical angle about cryptids. If we're to explore the paranormal, if we're to look at this from a completely kind of open-minded standpoint, could it have been something that we can't explain?
So there's a little bit more to this story. When the troopers arrive, the state troopers, they check his truck and they see that he has scratches on the roof of his cab and chipped bodywork in the bed of his truck. So something weighty has scratched on the roof of his cab and been in his bed recently, as best they can tell. He takes troopers back to where he roughly believes it happened. He said he can't give them an exact idea of where it is. And they end up having state patrol, emergency medical support, the sheriff and wildlife rangers all out searching. But no one could find anything. They even use a drone and can't see anything. Because at this point, various different agencies are thinking, could he have hit an animal, such as a bear? Could he have hit another human? Either way, we need to find out, and we need to try and support this person or save their life or this thing or what have you. And as another aside, the sheriff has confirmed that the battlefield, which is where he saw the individual with blood on them, over the years, they've had numerous calls come in about unexplained noises, sightings that can't be explained. He doesn't go into detail, but lots of very unusual happenings are taking place around this battlefield.
That's interesting because I wanted to shine a bit of a light on him as well, the fellow that he drives past first of all. And I'd love to know more about him because A, why was he dressed in Civil War attire, ripped Civil War attire at 11 p.m. at night in the middle of nowhere?
Bleeding.
Now you can maybe say, well, maybe he had been at a reenactment that day and he was waiting to get picked up. He'd been playing as a soldier who'd been killed, and we can explain the blood. But would he really want to be out there dead of night when you've got bears, bobcats, potentially dodgy humans coming along? Leads you to the other. I mean, again, if we're looking at this from a paranormal standpoint, then Americans tend to associate Civil War battlefields with ghosts quite a lot. I just failed to see how that would have any connection to him seeing some non-human creature leaping in the back of his truck and trying to kill him.
This is what I really struggle with. Are these two sightings completely unrelated?
Has he experienced something to 1 in a million paranormal encounters in the space of 30 seconds?
Or, we've already talked about the visibility. Is this quote-unquote man dressed in shredded clothes, bleeding? Was this the creature, whatever it was?
If you didn't get a good look at it.
That then chased him down and ended up in the bed of his truck. And it's interesting you went with the animal theory, because that's our best guess. But to me, it's pretty weak, Tom. So the bear's an interesting one. You're absolutely right. We do get bears in this area. However, apparently, you don't tend to get them in and around this stretch of road. And there tends to not be enough for them to scavenge. So it's not really a hot spot for the bears. Deer, and you're absolutely right, coyotes are prominent in this area. But find me a deer or a coyote that can do 60 mile an hour and jump into the bed of a truck and be tossed over it at 80 mile an hour and then survive. Funnily enough, the best theory, supposedly, is that it was a huge owl, which I just can't buy, Tom. I don't care how late it is. He sticks his bed lights on, which are quite bright, and gets a really good look at this thing. Now, sunken eyes, no nose, no ears. Yes, I guess that does sound a bit like an owl. But if you tossed an owl over the roof of your cab,
which I do frequently,
which you do, which is what you're known for around these parts, is it going to stand up and run into the tree line? And is it going to be 7 foot tall, Tom? That's surely one of the biggest, or the biggest owl ever on record.
The 7 foot tall comment and the humanoid angle are the things that throw me with that. Now, there are some cryptid sightings in the past, i.e. your Mothman, your Flatwoods monster, that can potentially be explained away by people having seen an owl. But yeah, I mean, an owl, the biggest species of owls out in Florida, North Carolina, you've got your barred owls and you've got your great horned owls, both of which are, I'd say, they're kind of the size of a very small dog. You're not going to get the thumping noise in the back of your truck if an owl was to sit down and, come for you in that way. If an owl was to fly down and come for you in that way. And also, like, I'm a bird watcher. I find it hard enough to see owls as it is. They're a nightmare to find. They're not just going to come down and slam themselves in the back of your truck. They'd have no reason to. They'd risk their lives. They're not going to come for anything that's the size of a truck because they don't eat things that are the size of trucks. They eat mice.
It's a very good point.
Yeah.
And you can just feel on the recording, whatever this is that falls into the bed of his truck, it has weight to it.
Oh, you can hear it.
You can hear it so clearly through a phone. And another theory that does get proposed is that this is all a hoax.
Yeah, we can never rule it out.
We can never rule it out. The issue I have with that is twofold. Number one, this is supposedly a 7-minute journey. That's what the sheriff's department say. This guy took less than that to get to his destination. At what point is he hoaxing this? Is he having someone jump up and down in the back of his cab? Because he's obviously not stopped at any point. Because if he was, he wouldn't be making... If he was, you would assume he wouldn't be hitting the timeline, or shorter than the timeline. I just don't buy it.
I was just going to say as well, also, what would he have to gain from tearing several claw-shaped marks into the side of his truck just to fake something that he's never really going to get much notoriety for without evidence, concrete evidence, or a photograph?
This is my follow-up point. So, the driver, until last year, was anonymous. When this breaks back in 2021, he doesn't give any interviews. He doesn't reveal his identity.
Always a good sign.
Always a good sign. In fact, we only hear his side of it in 2025 when a YouTube channel manages to approach him and begs him, for lack of a better term, to appear at interview. Even then, he interviews anonymously. He doesn't give his name. He's only known by T at this point, and he just talks through his experiences, which is where a lot of these details come from. So he's not seeking any kind of fame or notoriety, and in fact, quite the opposite. He doesn't want to talk about this, and they have to really convince him to. Now, funnily enough, a few months later, he's approached again by this channel who says, basically, your story's everywhere now. Would you like to comment on this? And it's the guy's wife who says to him, people are effectively identifying who you are on TikTok. Your family, friends, people who know you are saying, it's this person. I know it is. I know he's a trustworthy individual. So he effectively ends up speaking out just to not clear his name, but just to almost set the record straight and say, this was my experience, this is who I am. And at the time, he's got a decent career ahead of him. He's a mechanic in the Marines, and he's driving up from Florida to see his family. So this guy seeks no fame, no kind of monetary gain from this. He doesn't want anyone to know. For 4 years, he goes completely unknown and is happy to do so. Again, I just think, what is he to gain from hoaxing and, as you rightly point out, damaging his truck?
It would be pointless. And that, to me, I mean, the fact that he didn't come forward until he just kind of unwillingly gained internet notoriety, that, to me, speaks of a man who was maybe in fear of being ridiculed for seeing something that was potentially paranormal. These things can ruin careers. These things can destroy reputations. Absolutely.
Well, unfortunately, at one point in the second interview, second of the two that he gives, he doesn't give any more as far as I'm aware, he does even mention how some members of his family treat his story with a bit of skepticism. But for me, Tom, we obviously listen to a lot of tapes like this in creating this podcast. We listen to a lot of these accounts. That is one of the most visceral and real examples of someone experiencing pure terror. Now, I could be wrong. It could be a hoax. But to me, that is as genuine a reaction, a fearful reaction, as I think I've ever heard.
As you say, in researching for this podcast and just out of my own curiosity in my spare time, I will watch a lot of things that concern this kind of topic, and you can really tell when somebody's hamming it up. You can really tell when somebody's overacting, trying to get a bit of fame, 5 minutes of fame. But with this guy, I don't know. The repeatedly shrieking, "That's not human." That's what does it for me. He really seems to be convinced, even if it is something mundane. I believe that he believes that it was something that perhaps wasn't.
Absolutely. And you're right. That's the line. That's not human. That's not human. There's something in the bed of my truck. It almost sounds like he's confused. He's a bit bewildered. It's just he's almost talking nonsense.
It's probably how I'd react.
It's how I'd react. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that for me is, when I heard this, what instantly clinched it for me. And then you have all this other information that he wasn't seeking fame. He wanted to remain anonymous. All these other things, the timeline marries up. And do you know what, Tom? I can't see this being any animal I can think of. I can't see how any animal that lives in that area could catch a truck doing, let's say conservatively, 55 mile an hour, be quick enough to make that speed, be big enough to make that huge bang, be hardy enough to be thrown over the cab and just run straight off into the wilderness, and to have that appearance. And it isn't like he said, oh, in the back it looked like this, but then in front of me it looked like this. It's a consistent account of how this thing looked.
To be clearly recognised as a 7 foot tall humanoid with sunken eyes and a flat face.
It's a pretty specific description.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like a bear. It doesn't sound like a deer. It's a bit otherworldly. And you know me, I usually need a lot of evidence to be even half convinced of something. But for me, this one really sticks with me. And I think I genuinely believe he encountered something paranormal here, maybe? I don't know.
Let's go for it. I mean, we said the same thing about the Sierra Sounds. I hear reports of things like this from all across the United States. And however many of these people are telling the truth, we can never know. We'll never know. But we come back to that age-old line. If just one of them are telling the truth, then we've got to look at all of them with a little bit of seriousness.
It's a great point. And do you know what? I think that's what it comes down to. Having seen multiple interviews and that 911 call with this fella, I just trust him.
Oh, yeah.
I can't help but believe. So I guess what I'm saying is, I believe he saw, certainly, what he thinks he did. Whatever that means. But I can't believe that this guy was lying for a minute. And then you have this other angle of the Civil War battlefield, the sheriff saying in quite vague fashion that they get a lot of very unexplainable and weird calls in this area. I don't know, Tom. I don't know. It really stuck with me, this one.
Maybe if there is one, this is the one.
Maybe.
This is that story?
It could be.
Who knows?
Could be.
It's a great story. I really like it.
Yeah. Really, really creepy. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as we did. We'd love to hear any thoughts, theories, and even stories of your own that you have and would like us to cover. You can reach out to us on YouTube or Instagram and via email on hello.campfirearchives@gmail.com. And if you like what you heard today, please keep on liking, subscribing, and following, as that is really helping us out. Thank you so much.